There is a window. It is opening right now, and in a matter of days, it will close forever. Not in your lifetime again, not the way it is forming right now. Most people will move through this week completely unaware that three of the most powerful forces in the solar system are compressing into a single point in the sky, stacking on top of each other at 7 degrees of Aries, with a separation so narrow that ancient sky watchers would have called it an omen. You are not most people. You found this. You felt something pulling you here, a low vibration in your chest, a sense that something is arriving, something structural, something that rewrites the rules of the life you have been living. And you were right. Before this window closes, you will understand 3 things. First, what this triple conjunction of Mercury, Mars, and Saturn in Aries actually is, why it has not formed like this in living memory, and what the celestial mechanics of April the 20th, 2026 mean in plain cosmic language. Second, which 4 signs of the zodiac are standing at the sharpest edge of this alignment, what it is demanding from each of them, and why this window is not a punishment, but a precise and unforgiving invitation to become who you have been circling for years. Third, the specific practice, the exact morning ritual that transforms this conjunction from disruption into direction, from pressure into power, from a cosmic collision course into the moment you finally, deliberately chose your next life. Stay with this all the way through, because what is in the sky above you on April 20th at 5 in the morning Eastern Time is not a coincidence. It is a clock, and it is almost done ticking. 3 planets, 1 degree of sky, 0 room for delay. At 7 degrees and 51 minutes of Aries, Mars and Saturn will be separated by less than 1/4 of a degree. Mercury will sit just 23 arc minutes away. 23 arc minutes. That is less than half a single degree of the 360-degree wheel of the sky. To give you a sense of what that means physically, a full moon, as seen from Earth, spans approximately 30 arc minutes across. These 3 planets will be compressed into a space smaller than the visual width of the moon. They will not merely appear close. They will appear to be one singular burning point of coordinated intention in the pre-dawn sky. You have to understand what these 3 planets mean individually before you can understand what they mean together, because when you stack them, the result is not an addition, it is an amplification, unlike anything a single transit can produce. Mercury is the planet of thought, language, communication, and perception. It is the nervous system of the chart, the wire through which all information travels. It does not carry emotion, it carries signal, it translates, it decodes, it decides which words come out of your mouth, and which thoughts live only in the locked rooms of your mind. Mars is the planet of action, force, physical energy, desire, aggression, and drive. It is your will made into motion. It is the part of you that moves toward what it wants without apology. In Aries, its home sign, Mars does not walk. It runs. It does not ask permission. It ignites. And Saturn. Ancient, slow, monolithic Saturn, the planet of structure, time, consequence, discipline, limitation, and karmic reckoning. Saturn does not reward the impatient. It does not accelerate for the unprepared. Saturn operates on decades, not days. It builds pressure the way a tectonic plate builds pressure, slowly, invisibly, and then, without warning, a release so total it reshapes the landscape. Saturn in Aries is not comfortable. This is the sign of its fall. Saturn prefers to operate in signs that reward patience and long-term thinking. Aries is the sign of the first impulse, the first breath, the first fire. Saturn in Aries is a structure being built inside a burning house. It creates extraordinary tension between the need to act and the requirement to be careful, between the desire to launch and the reality of consequence, between who you are right now and who you are capable of becoming if you endure the construction. Now, take those 3 forces, stack them within 1/4 of a degree, activate them in Aries, where the cardinal fire of new beginnings burns hottest. And you begin to understand why April the 20th, 2026 is not simply an interesting astronomical event. It is a pressure point in time that separates everything that came before from everything that comes after. The last time a triple conjunction of Mercury, Mars, and Saturn formed with an orb this tight, you were a different version of yourself. The world was different, the structures you operate within were different, and the specific configuration this tight, in this sign, at these degrees, in this sequence of the Saturn in Aries era, has not occurred in living memory. When Saturn enters Aries approximately every 29 years, it brings with it an era of structural reckoning around identity, leadership, and personal sovereignty. But for Mercury and Mars to simultaneously pile into the exact same narrow band of sky, while Saturn occupies this position, that is a compounding of cosmic factors so specific that the historical record offers no clean parallel to hand you. The closest reference points require going back decades, and even then, the sign placements, the supporting configurations, the broader planetary context were fundamentally different. What you are standing in front of on April 20th is genuinely singular, and it is arriving on the heels of a new moon in Aries on April 17th at 27 degrees and 28 minutes, a fresh lunar cycle that planted a seed of raw initiation just 3 days before this triple conjunction detonates. The new moon set the table. The conjunction is the meal, and right behind it, the Lyrid meteor shower peaks on April 21st and 22nd, painting the sky with streaks of light as if the universe itself is underlining what just happened. The sky is not subtle this week. It is speaking at full volume. You felt something before you understood what it was. You felt it in your body first. You did not know it had a name. You did not know it had a date, a degree, a set of coordinates in the sky above your house. But something shifted around the first week of April and has been building steadily since. The pressure behind your eyes, not quite a headache, but a heaviness, a weight that sits just above the bridge of your nose, as if two thoughts are pressing into each other, and neither will yield. That is Mercury meeting Mars. Mental overdrive colliding with the force of action and creating a friction your skull is physically registering. The jaw tension. The clenching at night. The waking up with teeth pressed together harder than you intended. That is Saturn meeting Mars. Suppression. The force of something that wants to move, being held in a structure that is not yet ready to let it go. Your shoulders carry it too. That tightness across the tops of your trapezoids. That feeling of wearing invisible armor, a bracing against something you cannot fully name. And then there is the contradiction. That is perhaps the strangest symptom of this window. You are exhausted and yet electric. You are running on less sleep than you need. Your nervous system buzzing at a frequency that keeps you from going fully dark when you lie down. And yet during the day you feel a sharpness, a clarity, a sense that you could cut through something important if only the right moment would present itself. That is the triple conjunction in pure somatic form. Mercury brings the clarity. Mars brings the voltage. Saturn withholds the release until you have proven you are serious. Together they produce this exact sensation, mentally awake, physically wired, emotionally suspended between what you know you need to do and what you cannot quite bring yourself to begin. You have been here before, but never quite like this, never with this much at stake. Never with this many layers of things you have been postponing, quietly converging at once. This is not random anxiety. This is not burnout. This is not a bad week. This is the universe conducting a precise audit of everything you have been carrying without resolution. And the results are being transmitted through your nervous system, because that is the only language immediate enough for what is arriving. Pay attention to the body. It is not malfunctioning, it is receiving. Now, before we move into the 4 signs standing at the absolute eye of this storm, you need to understand what this window is demanding from everyone, regardless of your sign. Because the triple conjunction of Mercury, Mars, and Saturn in Aries carries a universal pressure that is not personalized, but is felt personally. It is asking one question. It is only asking one question. And the question is this: what have you been tolerating that your deeper self has already decided it will no longer accept? Not what you are angry about. Not what you wish were different. What have you made a quiet inner decision about in the dark, without announcing it, without moving on it, without telling anyone, a decision that lives in you like an unexploded ordnance, waiting for the exact right conditions to become real? That is what this conjunction is targeting. The unacted decision. The unmade move. The thing you know, in the part of yourself that does not lie, that the next version of your life requires. Mercury is the messenger. It is bringing you information about where you have been unclear, where your words have not matched your intentions, where the story you have been telling others, and telling yourself, has started to crack under the weight of what you actually know to be true. Mars is the force. It is not asking you to be gentle about this. Mars in Aries does not traffic in gentle. It is asking you to move with the kind of decisive, unapologetic energy that you probably last felt when you were young enough not to have learned how to be afraid of your own desires. And Saturn is the auditor. It is reviewing everything, every commitment you made and abandoned, every boundary you set and then quietly dissolved, every version of yourself you promised to become and then quietly set aside. Saturn in Aries does not let these things expire. It collects them, it holds them, and on April 20th, with Mercury and Mars pressed against it like a fist tightening around a pen, Saturn is presenting the bill. You will either pay it with action, or you will pay it with stagnation. There is no third option. Now here is what you do not do during this window, and this part matters because Mercury-Mars-Saturn configurations carry a karmic amplifier that makes the consequences of impulsive action unusually lasting. You do not send the message you have been drafting in your head at 2 in the morning. Not now, not this week. Mercury is sharpening your tongue to a surgical edge, and Mars wants to drive that edge into the exact place that will cause the maximum rupture. That combination, under Saturn's karmic gaze, produces words that land like permanent marks. What you say during an activated Mercury-Mars window is harder to unsay than at almost any other point in the year. The words will outlast the moment. You do not make the impulsive financial decision. The contract that appeared out of nowhere, the investment that someone is pressing you to close before the end of the week, the major purchase you have been rationalizing toward. Not during this window. Saturn square, your judgment here is not metaphorical. Wait. You do not pick the fight for the sake of having it out. Mars wants the confrontation. Mars in Aries always wants the confrontation. But Saturn will ensure that whatever you destroy in this window is not easily rebuilt. You do not blow up a structure simply because it is confining you. Structural confinement during a Saturn transit is not an invitation to demolish. It is an invitation to renovate, slowly, deliberately, with the understanding that the next structure you build on the rubble will be governed by the same Saturn that watched you tear the last one down. And you do not start 17 things at once. The cardinal fire of Aries, stoked by 3 compressed planets, will make you feel like you have the energy of a star being born. You will want to launch everything simultaneously. Do not pick one. The single most important move. And make it with total intentionality. Here is what you do instead. On the morning of April the 20th, you wake before the sun. This is not optional if you want to engage with this energy at its most potent. Around 5 in the morning Eastern Time, you step outside or stand at a window that faces east and you look. You look at the sky just above the horizon and you find a single, burning point of light. If the sky's clear and you have even a basic pair of binoculars, you will see it. 3 planets, Mercury, Mars, and Saturn, compressed into a cluster so tight, they barely separate at all. You are looking at a 3-planet alignment that has not occurred in this exact configuration in living memory. You are looking at one of the rarest morning sky events of this decade. Let that land in your body. You are not reading about it. You are standing under it. Then you come inside and you write. Not a journal entry, not a diary. You write 3 things, the 3 long-held frustrations that have been in your system the longest, the ones that predate this week, the ones that have been quietly draining your energy for months or years. You write each one at the top of a blank page, and beneath each one, you write a single concrete step. Not a plan. Not a strategy. Not a vision board. One step. The smallest legitimate action that moves you from stagnation into motion on that specific frustration. One step for each. 3 pages. That is all. Then you set the pages somewhere you will see them, and you speak the 3 steps aloud. Out loud, in your actual voice, in the actual air of the room you are standing in. Mercury in a stellium with Mars and Saturn amplifies spoken intention in a way that written intention alone does not capture. The vibration of your own voice, committing in the presence of a triple conjunction, is not performance. It is activation. Drink cold water after. Hold it in your hands first. Feel the temperature. And breathe before you drink. This is not mysticism. This is grounding a nervous system that has been running on high voltage. Cold water and conscious breath after an activation practice is the difference between the electricity being useful and it simply burning through you. This is the ritual. This is what turns April the 20th from a date on a calendar into a threshold. Now, the 4 signs standing at the exact crossroads of this conjunction. These 4 signs are not unfortunate. They are chosen. They are being called. The pressure landing on them is not random punishment. It is the universe using this conjunction as a lever to move something in their life that has needed moving for far longer than they would like to admit. The first sign is Aries. This is your sky. The triple conjunction is not landing near your sign or in a connected house or sending ripples across the wheel to touch you secondarily. It is landing directly in you, at 7 to 9 degrees of your first house, the house of identity, the house of self, the house of the face you present to the world, and the face you see when there is no one watching. For Aries, this conjunction is the most personal possible transit. Mercury is your thoughts about who you are. Mars is the force of your will, as it relates to your own direction, and Saturn is the structure, the limitation, the weight of the old version of yourself, pressing down on the new version, trying to take its first steps. You have been in a construction phase. You may not have named it that. You may have called it a difficult season, a period of uncertainty, a time when things were not moving the way you expected. But what has actually been happening is structural. Saturn has been building something in you, through resistance, through delay, through the frustrating experience of trying to move quickly and finding that the road keeps slowing you down no matter how much force you bring to it. That slowing down was not failure, that was Saturn installing a foundation. Because a building raised without a foundation collapses. And what is being built in Aries right now is not a temporary shelter. It is a structure meant to last years. Mercury arrives this week to tell you what the structure is for. Mars arrives to remind you that you have the force to complete it. And the conjunction, the 3 of them together on April 20th, is the moment you stop asking when things will get better and start making the choices that make them better. This is not an invitation to be cautious. This is an invitation to be precise. The identity you step into during this window is not the identity you fell into through circumstance. It is the one you choose with full awareness and full accountability. The crossroads for Aries is this: continue performing the version of yourself that the world has known, or step into the version that has been forming in the dark, the one that knows more, endures more, requires more, and is capable of delivering more than anyone, including you, has yet witnessed. The second sign carrying the full weight of this triple conjunction is Libra. You are the opposition. The 3 planets at 7 to 9 degrees of Aries are forming a direct opposition to your first house, which means they are landing with their full force in your 7th house, the house of partnerships, committed relationships, contracts, and the people whose lives are most bound to yours. For Libra, this week is not about your internal identity. It is about your relational one. The question Saturn is asking you through this opposition is not who you are in isolation. It is who you have agreed to be in proximity to another person. The partnerships in your life are being illuminated with a kind of clarity that Libra, which is built for diplomacy and balance, and the graceful management of other people's needs finds deeply uncomfortable. Because clarity about partnerships is not always comfortable. Sometimes clarity reveals that a balance you thought was mutual was actually you carrying more than your half in silence. Sometimes it reveals that a commitment you honored was not being honored in return. And sometimes it reveals that a relationship that once shaped you well has shaped you as far as it can and is now confining you in ways you have been too gracious to name. Mercury in opposition to Libra's relational sector brings the words, the ones you have been editing before they leave your mouth. The ones you have been softening into non-recognition because the full, unfiltered version of what you actually think felt like too much, too direct, too likely to rupture the surface you have worked so hard to keep smooth. Mars in opposition brings the urgency, the sense that this can no longer wait, that the thing you have been circling in this relationship for months, the conversation you have been rehearsing and then abandoning, the decision you have been approaching and then retreating from, has a deadline now. The deadline is the window, and Saturn, watching from the opposition point, is asking you a question only you can answer. Is the structure of this partnership built on truth? Because what is built on something other than truth will feel this conjunction as a crack. And what is built on authentic foundation will feel it as a reinforcement, a deepening, a confirmation that the commitment is load-bearing. The crossroads for Libra is this. Speak the truth that is living inside you into the structure of your most important relationship. Knowing that truth is the only material this particular Saturn conjunction recognizes as valid. The third sign standing at the center of this crossroads is Capricorn. You know Saturn. Saturn rules you. It is the planet of your natural architecture, your governing impulse, your preference for structure, patience, long-term thinking, and the disciplined building of things that last. You are, of all the signs, the one most prepared for Saturn's agenda. Which is precisely why this conjunction is complicated for you. In a way, it is not complicated for the others, because Saturn in Aries, the sign of its fall, is not operating the way you are used to seeing it operate. Aries does not want to wait. Aries does not want to pace itself. Aries wants to ignite and move and claim and begin. And Saturn, forced to operate inside that dynamic, is creating a friction that Capricorn, who trusts Saturn implicitly, is not sure how to read. The triple conjunction this week squares your chart. It comes from a cardinal sign in a cardinal modality, activating the same desire for decisive movement that Aries carries, but in direct tension with Capricorn's natural preference for methodical, proven, deliberate advancement. The pressure for Capricorn is this: you have a plan. You have always had a plan. But the plan was built for conditions that no longer fully exist. And the version of ambition you have been executing, the one you built years ago, may be running on outdated intelligence. Mercury in the square is delivering new information about your career, about your definition of success, about whether the summit you have been climbing is actually the summit you want to reach, or whether it is the one you committed to before you knew everything you know now. Mars in the square is creating impatience with your own pace. You are not slow. Capricorn is never actually slow. But you may be feeling the mounting pressure of knowing that a pivot is necessary and not yet having made it, held in place by the enormous amount of structure and investment you have already sunk into the current direction. Saturn, watching from Aries, fallen but functional, is asking you to do the hardest Saturnian task of all. Distinguish between discipline that builds something worth having and endurance that simply prolongs something that has already served its purpose. The crossroads for Capricorn is this: update the plan, not abandon it. Update it with the ruthless, evidence-based clarity that you are actually built for, but have been too loyal to your past commitments to fully apply to your present circumstances. The fourth sign is Cancer. You are the other cardinal square. The conjunction at 7 to 9 degrees of Aries is forming a 90-degree angle to your chart, activating your 10th house, your 4th house axis, the exact line that runs between the life you have built privately at home and the life you are presenting to the world. For Cancer, the conjunction this week is not arriving through identity or relationships or career in isolation. It is arriving through the place where all of those things originate: security. The felt sense of safety that either allows you to move freely in the world or keeps you small in ways you have rationalized as cautious. Mercury in this square is surfacing the thoughts you have been suppressing about your domestic situation. The things you have not said out loud, because home is where you keep your softness, and speaking hard truths in soft spaces feels like contaminating the one place that was supposed to be safe. Mars in this square is creating an urgency around something you have been protecting from examination. Not because it is not worth protecting, but because the protection has become a way of not looking at what needs to change. Cancer is the sign of deep intuition, emotional memory, and the architecture of belonging. Underneath the comfort and the familiarity and the rituals of your life as it currently is, that something has been asking for resolution. Something in your closest domestic or emotional world has been communicating with you through feeling for a long time, a low, persistent ache, a restlessness that arrives specifically in the spaces that are supposed to be the most peaceful. A sense that what once felt like home, in the deepest sense, whether a physical place, a relationship, an emotional contract with yourself, is no longer fully fitting. Saturn in the square is not asking you to burn it down, it is asking you to renovate it honestly, to stop maintaining the exterior while ignoring the interior, to stop holding space for everyone else's emotional needs while the inventory of your own goes uncounted. The crossroads for Cancer is this: name the thing that has been living in you without language. Give it words, give it a specific sentence that describes exactly what you need that you have not yet asked for, and then ask for it. Not in a way that protects everyone else from the impact of your need. In a way that honors the need as real and legitimate and long overdue for acknowledgement. That is the conjunction speaking through you. That is Saturn auditing the emotional accounts you have been keeping open and unresolved. Now the window is almost here. April 20th arrives in days. The sky above you is already in motion. Mercury, Mars, and Saturn have been narrowing their separation since the first week of April. The orb has been tightening the way a fist tightens around something it has been holding loosely for too long. By the morning of April 20th, the compression will be at its most precise, and then it will begin to loosen. The window will open, reach its apex, and start to close. What you do in that window, not what you read about, not what you intend to do, not what you tell yourself you will start soon, what you actually do, the step you actually take, the word you actually speak aloud, the decision you actually make with full awareness of the stakes. That is what this conjunction will remember. That is what Saturn records, because Saturn always records, and the record does not fade. Consider that for a moment. Everything you have built in your life that has lasted, every structure that has survived, every foundation that has held under pressure, something happened to initiate it. Some moment where you decided, really decided, not tentatively, not with one foot still pointed at the exit, but with the full weight of your intention behind it. That moment was a Saturn moment, slow to arrive, unmistakable when it did. This is that moment. 3 planets, a quarter degree of sky, a single burning point of light above the eastern horizon before the sun rises, and underneath that light, you, with a journal, with a voice, with 3 frustrations that finally have a strategic response. With the specific awareness that the version of yourself you are meant to become is not waiting somewhere in the future. It is waiting in the action you take on April 20th. This is not a message for everyone. This is a message for the person who felt something before they had an explanation for it. Who noticed the tension in their body without knowing its name. Who arrived here not by accident, but by the pull of their own knowing. That person is ready for what this conjunction is delivering. Not the disruption, the direction, not the pressure, the precision, not the collision, the crossroads. And at a crossroads, the only thing that is not an option is standing still. The window is opening. Be at the threshold when it does. If this landed somewhere real in you, If you felt the weight of what is arriving or recognized your sign in the breakdown above, stay connected to this space. There is more to navigate in the months ahead, and the people who move through it with the sharpest awareness will be the ones who prepared. Like this, share it with someone who is in the middle of something unresolved. They will know exactly why you sent it, and subscribe, because what is forming in the sky for the remainder of this year makes April the 20th look like the opening chapter of something much, much larger.